Hello, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to this AMA update. So we've got a community update for you. And as always, we got some great questions from the community. It's been a while. We've been working really hard. I know everybody working on the project has been going very hard. So good to do this again. I think it's been 2 months. So Stan, you want to say hi real quick to everybody?
Yeah, hey guys, it's nice to talk to you. I think we haven't talked to the community for several, at least weeks, if not more. Lots of things have been happening. We're releasing 2.2, we're working on ZK. So lots of work at Scale Engineering. We've been trying to do Twitter updates. If you follow us on Twitter, you'll see that nowadays we have every week, every engineer at Scale posts some Twitter updates. But it's still really nice to talk to you guys in person.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a good call out. I think in general to start is how do we as a project stay up to date and talk to each other? One, Stan and I can get up and have conversations every week, even if we wanted. But part of what's happening here is Scale is really evolving as a decentralized structure. We have on-chain voting. We have the forum up and running. And also we're really embracing Twitter more so than we ever have before. And we really are trying to leverage Twitter to communicate and talk. And we are decentralized. So we, as founders of this protocol, have a special initiative to give updates to all the constituents. So listening today, I know we have people working on the validator side. We have people working on the dApp developer side. We have people that are part of the community. We have people that are stakers. There are many, many different stakeholders and participants that are here. And so this is really nice for us as, to be able to update everybody in one very efficient manner, because I think lots of people are touching different parts of the project. So I'm going to kick it off with a general update on the business and I'd say more go-to-market side of what's happening. And then Stan's going to be talking about the technical side, and then we're going to handle some AMA questions. Okay, so it'll be fun. Let's get into it. First thing I want to call out. So I've got a view here of transactions. This is in dApp Radar. If you go to industry overview and you go to dApp chains by volume, I'm looking at this live. And you look at, sorry, hold on one second. Transactions per chain. So if you go to the dApp transactions per chain in the industry overview, we like seeing this because it's a third-party unbiased view. And I'm sorting by scale, Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, Avalanche, and Base. I'll add a mutable X on there too, and you can add anybody you want. But those are projects we run into a lot in terms of competition. When we're trying to compete to win deals to help developers, Scale is a decentralized community. So right now, Scale, and typically this is the case, but today you go look at it, we have 511,000 transactions over the last 24 hours. Keep in mind, these are validated transactions. These are from validated applications. These wash out all the kind of, different networks have their own tokens being swapped back and forth and different things that aren't qualified application transactions by dApp Radar. And so Scale is in the lead with 511,000. Polygon's got 400,000. Base has 70. Arbitrum 94. Optimism 69,000. Avalanche 39,000. Immutable X only 13,000. So we see that, and I call that out to say, there's almost a tale of two worlds happening right now, where you look optically from the market perspective and you read the macro news, and it's like, it's like a horror story. It's like the depth of winter and this dystopian future. But then if you go look at what's happening with all the builders, and there is more happening than ever before. Our teams have never been busier in terms of implementing projects, in terms of helping co-market releases, helping launch games. And you can see that from a player perspective and a user perspective, things have never been busier either. Okay, so from a core metrics perspective, looking at this, there's been 343,000 active wallets over the last 30 days on Scale. There's been over 969,800 total users or unique active wallet addresses in history. and we've already crossed 138 million transactions. So I call this out because it's a good reminder to think about the metrics that matter. And from our perspective, we have to, and everybody working on the project across all the different units and companies and entities, we just have to keep focused on the metrics that matter and keep building. And that's all we can do. And, I see that we've saved 1.877 billion in gas fees. And hey, all these metrics before June of last year were abysmal. They weren't even there. And so this network is really coming into its own. Also, while our value proposition is really, and our architecture is now the hot item. Multi-chain architectures, many chain architectures, app chain architectures, all with pooled security dynamics. That is the hot topic. And as well as implementing things like ZK, which SKALE's also doing. But it's really, I have to say, from a builder perspective, an amazing time. There's been also, just to note, today is the last day of the month. Last month, we did 22.2 million transactions on chain, 22.5 this month. So not a huge growth from last month, but hey, last month was our biggest month in history, and we caught up to it. And so pretty excited about that. So good job, everybody. Cheers. A lot of hard work by a lot of people. I have I'd say the honor of being able to be the one and Stan being the one to talk about it, but there's a lot of people doing a lot of hard work. Okay, I'm going to call it a few big wins, and then I'd love to hear Stan weigh in before we get into the tech side. So first off, the Stars Play announcement was huge. Okay, and in this news cycle we're in, everything's just how bad is Bitcoin price? What's happening in the global macro conditions? News like this gets overshadowed. So Stars is a wholly owned subsidiary, or Stars Play is a wholly owned subsidiary of Stars Inc., which is part of Lionsgate, one of the major global streaming solutions out there. And they're like HBO Max and Paramount, etc. So Stars has a sports streaming part, and they have deals with Italian Serie A, which is the 8th largest sports league in the world. With the Saudi league, it has Neymar joining and Ronaldo already playing in the league, and UAE right now. And there's going to be more and more sports leagues joining as they grow. Well, guess what? They have a Web 2.5 application, which is a Web 3 application with a really easy to use mobile application. You know what? They have a fantasy sports application that you can play in this interactive model with your television. And guess what? It runs on SKALE. It was a huge win. That was the biggest brand we'd ever announced at that. And it was awesome because we have so many amazing builders building kick-ass projects. And it was good. It was great to see these enterprise efforts really start to pull through. Okay. I also want to call out Hurley. I think Hurley was just announced. So Hurley has a surfing game, and that's going on SKALE with the tokens on Jump Trade, which is one of the top NFT marketplaces in the world. It's awesome to see that. Hurley is owned as part of the Nike family. Amazing sports products, especially in alternative sports like surfing, skating, etc. But they've got a really cool game that's launching, and SKALE is really proud to be the supporting blockchain partner for that. Another huge win. We've also had some big successes. Untitled Platformer, almost consistently in the top 5 in the DApp Radar game ranking. So props to that team. And if you look at the product they've built, the game they've built, it's all in the browser. It's easy to use, no gas fees, free to play. Free to play was the hottest thing in the late aughts for gaming and early 2010, the 2010s. Because there wasn't a friction component. All of a sudden, you didn't have to buy the game before you played it. You could start playing for free, and then you had in-game monetization. Well, that hasn't been able to happen on blockchain until now because of gas-free gaming, without really heavy subsidies by relayers. And so we enable that to happen in a really easy way that has good unit economics for the game builder. Awesome to see Untitled doing so well. Gamify also just massively crushing it. They had one of the top downloaded apps in the Google app Android store under the gaming category, or under the sports category. And really exciting things happening there. And they're getting more and more on chain. And so they've taken a really cool 2.5 model. Also want to call out 0x Battleground. Keep your eyes open. There's some awesome stuff happening. You can play the beta game or starting game now, and there's another rollout happening. And there's some bit, really pumped about what 0x Battleground's doing. And if you look at Untitled, Gamify, and 0x Battleground, 3 really amazing games in 3 really distinct gaming categories. So you've got the heavy-duty players that play AAA style games and download them to their gaming PCs for 0x Battleground. You've got casual gamers who can come play browser game on Untitled. And then you have mobile players who are downloading or playing mobile games through Android on Gamify. So it's awesome to see that. 3 different distinct categories where SKALE has a leading game in that category. So great job by those teams. That's awesome. Also want to call out the Horizon Lab Ventures partnership, NFTB Marketplace, 5 stars integration and launch, Zeus, Heroes.fun, Bujo World, Pixudi, Elements, Coinsender, and more. There's just a lot of great stuff happening. That's just a quick snapshot. There'll be a much deeper update going out in review. But again, go check out SKALE Twitter. Go check out the SKALE blog, and you can read more about that. Stan, do you want to talk about any of these wins before we get to the tech side?
Yeah, I just want to mention some interesting things. Like one really interesting thing that, which is, I think, not many people realize now, is that SKALE now has the first ever successful AI blockchain application. So if you look at Xordi uses lots of SKALE. Actually, Jack, when you said that SKALE is actually running lots of transactions, not only that, but also some of these transactions are really heavy, computationally heavy. Because, for instance, Xordi is using AI. And what Xordi does, they have thousands of agents that essentially analyze thousands of messages per minute on social networks, like Twitter, for instance, right? So they have these agents, this AI agents that analyze social networks, and using AI algorithms, they can do lots of things, in particular determine things like sentiment. And recently, there was this story, I actually found out about this later. There was this Bitcoin flash crash. The price of Bitcoin dropped like 8% because of some things on the market. People got upset about Bitcoin. They got unhappy about Bitcoin. And this unhappiness actually got translated on Twitter into change in average Twitter sentiment. And Xordi was able to, using their AI algorithms, first of all, the agents, they were able to find those messages, analyze them using AI, push back the information to SKALE, and then when the information was aggregated, the result was that there was this negative, really strong negative sentiment, and this happened an hour before Bitcoin crashed. So, and then after that, if you go to explore the Twitter, guys, you can find lots of other things. Some of them I retweeted. They also analyze things like Tesla stock and many other things. So there are actually very real facts that show that Xordi is real. When they started, they had this idea that you could analyze social networks using AI and the blockchain, and then you could use this information. Now this is all real. They are running in production. They analyze lots and lots of things, and they're running the super heavy transactions on SKALE, which are impossible to run anywhere else. Not only they would cost lots of money, but they would be actually even theoretically impossible to run on other networks. So Xordi now actually opened their API. If someone wants to start using Xordi, you can register and get their API and start actually using this information. So this is, I think Xordi is going to be a really big thing. But the funny thing is that, to my knowledge, it's the first ever blockchain application that uses AI and that makes sense, right? Predicting the flash crash of Bitcoin makes sense. So I think we need to talk more about this. I kind of tweeted a couple of times about this already. The funny thing is that, like, if you read like Cointelegraph, CoinDesk, other publications, they're all about AI, but they need to notice that that Xordi is actually doing it now. Like, people talk about the like glue of blockchain and AI. We have it now. And another funny thing, I hope it is going to be corrected soon, but because Xordi is not a game and it's not DeFi, at the moment, Xordi is not on Diapradar. And I don't think it's Diapradar's fault. It's just that they don't have a category for AI. So we have this interesting situation where we have the first ever blockchain AI app that runs and makes sense. But I think we need all of the Scale community need to promote this a little more, because it is actually a big deal. So I think Xordi is definitely really interesting. And what you, Jack, mentioned, I think that the fact that we got these 3 games really successful, what we see is that because we have 0 transaction fees, games on Scale can become successful with less effort, smaller startup team. I think we have a proof now that 0 transaction fees matter, because we've seen this like games launching on Scale, and they have been successful really fast, I think. So I think this is a really good sign.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Stan. One other thing I want to say is, I just want to call out a lot of the good press too that's been coming through. So even though this market news cycle has been very negative, we've had coverage on NASDAQ, on Bloomberg Radio, and Bloomberg, and CoinDesk and other publications. And I've been doing a lot of talking about it and had a lot of op-eds. And please see the blog to get updated on those. You'll start seeing Stan a lot more too, talking on these points. We have a very unique perspective. Both Stan and I came from AI and big data prior to doing blockchain. And so I think we have a lot of specific expertise. Scale is built to support that type of load. And I've got to give Stan credit. When Stan and I were first meeting and talking about doing Scale, he said, oh, well, someday, with blockchains, you're going to need AI to help, make them more efficient and effective, but also blockchains can help make AI more transparent and fair. And so he'd been thinking about these problems for a long time. He's a real technical visionary. And so, Stan, I think it's fun to see this stuff come together, but it's really going into our sweet spot, right? Where your initial technical vision was pointing.
Totally, Jack. I think it was a surprise to me that actually that Xordi was able to do it so fast, because I think if you just like go and read things on the internet, there are so many now projects that somehow just like stamp the word AI on a coin and not really doing AI. But Xordi actually started before ChatGPT happened. So they had this idea of using basically decentralized agents to analyze Twitter. Because if you have a centralized agent, Twitter won't let you analyze them, right? But if you have this myriad of decentralized agents, Twitter cannot prevent you from getting analyzed. And then you can analyze Twitter, not only Twitter, I think they also analyze other networks. Definitely Twitter is a really important one. And so suddenly you have this decentralized source of data, which is really truthful. And then you apply AI to it, again, in a transparent manner, because everyone can check it through Xordi. Source code is open. And then now you have this application where, like, I was really amazed, like, when I found out about this. I thought Xordi was going to launch production, but I didn't realize they would launch so fast. So they kind of caught me off guard a little when there was the story about Bitcoin flash crash. And now, so I actually strongly recommend anyone that wants to just go read their Twitter. But also, if any of you guys have an idea about an application you can build by analyzing social networks, you could actually also use the API that Xordi provides. And it can only be done on scale because, as already mentioned, the volume of messages is staggering. They're analyzing thousands of messages per minute now. I think they can add more as they add more different social networks.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so thank you, Stan. So we're going to, one last thing I want to call out is, SKALE really, I think as everyone saw in V2, came into its own and really excelled. And we see our partners who now have multi-chains launching, coming up with the same issues we had in our V1 about cross-chain harmony, user experience, cross-chain synergy. And we see announcements from competitors saying, "Oh, we're launching the super chain that can let all the chains talk to each other." Well, we already have that, and developers know that. So we're trying to let the rest of the world know that. But one of the best ways to do it is just to keep winning deals. And again, we as core team members are just part of the story here. There's many people that are helping win the deals, and obviously running the network. There's a lot of actors involved, but I just want to say that, when we made these changes, it first started reflecting in the amount of projects we were talking to. And there's this huge, all of a sudden, like a 10x growth in the number of active, I'd say, deals happening. And then that started turning into signed contracts and starts turning into announcements. But none of this matters unless we see things live. And we're really starting to see that big flow that started a while ago work its way through and start to go live. So I think there's something like 10 plus go lives now during in a 2-week period, which is unheard of here. Usually if we have one a week, right, or one every 10 days or something, it's a big deal. But to have 10 projects going live in 2 weeks is massive. You'll read all about, you're obviously hearing about most of these already. But it's awesome to see that. And there's over 50 that are in the process of going live now. And many, many more that, that the community, that everyone's talking to. And there's a lot of active people from a lot of companies working on this. So just want to say, for us, we haven't always been the flashiest project, but we've always been about fundamentals and doing things, letting actions speak louder than words. And sometimes that's not a best strategy. But in this type of market, it's, I think, the only thing you can do. And we're being as loud as we can, but we want actions to speak louder than words. And I just say, keep up the good work, everybody. And we're starting to really, really see it in on-chain data where it really counts. Last piece of update before we go into the AMA questions is I have heard through my sources that there will be a proposal for the chain pricing. The goal was by end of month. So that would mean by end of today. So it might be by end of today, hopefully. To meet the deadline. Again, it's not as simple as Stan and I saying, "Hey, let's push this thing out." Other people need to get involved. Other people push the proposals forward. Other people vote. Stan and I didn't vote at all in the approval voting. And neither did anybody on the core team, to my knowledge. And so anybody who's staked can vote, but go read that forum proposal, because chain pricing is really where I think our story starts. We've got this loss leader approach where other chains are doing these huge subsidies, giving these big grants to offset their gas fees, and SKALE took a loss leader approach on economics to ultimately lead into what I would say a 3-phased approach is how I'm reading it. In phase 2, kicking off in October, if 1, the proposal is well accepted and commented on; 2, if the proposal is voted on and then approved; 3, then implemented. And I think that really takes things into the next level for SKALE and brings the whole economic story together. And I'm really excited about it. But again, a lot of people need to get involved. It can't be, it can't be us. It's got to be a lot of people for a lot of reasons. Decentralized entities are way stronger than centralized ones. And so I'm seeing a lot of active people work on that, and keep your eyes open, because the sooner that gets out into an open source environment outside of just the community devs' hands, the sooner we can get that improved and approved. Okay, all right, let's go to the questions. So actually, Stan, before we kick off, a lot of these questions deal with how was the last release and what's coming on the next release that's in testing. Can you weigh on those 2 points? And then there's some questions about levitation and SKALE ZK, but just let's start the AMA there. I'm consolidating a bunch of questions to say, how did the prior release go and what's going on with the new release?
Yeah, so the release that we actually have now, like our workhorse is 2.1.1, and this actually been running pretty well in the sense that, Jack, we have many chains and, all of them are running. But in reality, every day there's something happening on the network. A validator may temporarily shut down their machine. There may be a network disruption. All kinds of things happen. But I think the blockchain, the SKALE blockchain, has proven to be really resilient because it's mathematically provable, and the algorithms have this self-healing property. So essentially, some of the nodes are temporarily out, or whatever happens on the network, chains continue to run, and we don't really do much in engineering. Like, we don't control the chains, and frankly, like I'm sitting here now. Well, I think when we started, we kind of had the strange feeling that, this thing is running, maybe it's going to crash, and it's a little bit, creates a little anxiety. But now we're getting used to the fact that, we have this many chains. As you said, we have hundreds of thousands of transactions per day, and some of them are really heavy transactions. I think if you include heaviness of the transactions, we are probably the most loaded network now, probably the most loaded blockchain, because the transactions are heavy. But even if we're not the most loaded, we have lots and lots of them, and as we speak now, they're all happening, and we don't really do much about it. So 2.1.1 is doing really well, and the mathematics is running pretty well. For 2.2, the major focus was memory. We wanted to decrease the memory consumption of our blockchain, and the measurements show that the memory consumption is drastically down in 2.2. Just to give you an example, if you take a regular Ethereum mainnet node, usually that would be something which people call Geth, Go Ethereum, Geth. Usually it requires around 16 gigabyte of memory, of RAM, to run. So basically, to run this node, you need to get a computer or virtual machine which has at least 16 gigabyte of RAM. And with SKALE 2.2, our hope that we can run under 500 megabyte, which would be, I think, more than 30 times less. Partially, it comes from the fact that we are the only ones in the Ethereum community that use C++. Other people use less other languages like Go, Python, Rust. We use C++. With C++, it's hard to program, but you can actually get lots of achievements in terms of resource allocation, particular memory. So we are actually really happy about the memory consumption in 2.2. And there will be some interesting experiments coming from our Twitter, where we'll be trying to run SKALE on memory-constrained devices or machines. This is kind of also something which is fun for our engineers to try. And then, in addition to this, 2.2 has major token transfer improvements.
Let me stop you for a second,
because
what I want to say is this is potentially, just highly groundbreaking, and I want to just like. Which is an awesome thing, because typically if you're just running Geth, you have to use these big expensive machines. And if you're using SKALE, current SKALE, you're using a pretty expensive machine. You're still not the same requirement. But with this new release, we're going to, you could potentially run it on a nano machine, which, how much does one of those cost a month? Like $7?
Yes, there are actually competitive offerings from Google, from AWS, from Microsoft Cloud, and some other guys. But all of them are promising $5 to $7 a month. So,
and so what's cool about this is the original Scale vision for containerization. Right now, each master node can have 8 subnodes, and these 8 subnodes, it's a medium chain. And there was always a vision to have a 1/128th chain, and it just wasn't implemented because it just didn't need that many chains, frankly. And you divide compute resources, and the less subnodes in a node, the faster the chain's going to be. So we don't see this as being something that that a hub would utilize, because hubs have a bunch of apps and they need a lot of throughput. But imagine the app chain environment in the Scale network if, as the original vision is delivered on even more in a different way, it just enables smaller app chains to join the network that run on highly cost-effective machines. Okay. And it just a huge magnitude difference in terms of the cost of running a chain if we can start integrating these other pieces, and they all can be rented with Scale tokens. Now, these are the community developers have to drive this initiative, and there's going to be consensus amongst builders and a lot of people involved. But from a core team research perspective, this is something that you could almost see as like a huge innovation, and then how it's utilized and acted upon, there's probably a lot of different ways. So Stan, that's exciting. Really exciting.
Yeah, totally, Jack. I'm really excited. Our guys are exciting. I think it's also good because you need to give engineers something to have fun, and it also like a little bit opens up your brain, because you remember, like during the previous crypto summer, everyone was saying, okay, we have this so many transactions per second. And I remember actually one of our competitors said that they have 16,000 transactions per second. Now I can check, and actually they have 26, but okay, doesn't matter. But the point is that everyone was saying, okay, we have many, like thousands of, in reality, what people are telling us, not every DApp needs so many transactions, and in many cases we see that chains can be actually underutilized. So actually it's a different twist to say, instead of say that we have more and more throughput, go into the direction of providing reasonable throughput at dirt cheap pricing, right? Like running on this like super inexpensive, low resource machines, and then it opens up like a personal computer. Personal computer wasn't the more, compared to mainframes when Apple introduced personal computer, it wasn't the most powerful, but it was inexpensive. People could have it in their home. So it opens up lots of interesting ideas. Like if you have a chain which is $100 per month, right? How would you use it? Maybe small businesses would use it. Maybe people would use it for some engineering, for IoT, Internet of Things. These types of applications. But actually, when things become really inexpensive, I think this can open lots of applications. So I think that it all started with just like making sure that we use less memory in 2.2. But then once we got to the end of this road, we looked and said, okay, we have less than 500 megabyte, and it became actually more than just improving from 2.1 from 2.2, because now we have this interesting kind of direction. What's going to happen if we make many inexpensive chains? And the engineers are definitely excited about this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And so Stan, I know there's some testing that's happening. When will we be able to hear an update on that? Maybe you could tweet on that after the test comes out.
Well, I know that actually it's someone is already working on it. So I don't think it will take long time. It will definitely take maybe, like, is the next week, this week or next one? Something like that.
Okay. It'd be good to see a tweet update for you. Just, build in public, right? Everybody gets the same information. This is I think a big transformative value. 2.2 is going to be we have the luxury, I'd say, the SKALE project has the luxury of being able to refine things and optimize performance because we did a lot of the hard pieces up front. Other chains started with one chain and maybe a roll up, or one centralized instance with a roll up. We have started with lots and lots of chains, which took a long time. And then we had to build interoperability. And now we get to improve everything because we know the issues. Other people had one chain and they're trying to figure out how to make more chains. And then, then how do we make them work together? How do we fix interoperability? How do we optimize performance? And I think we had the luxury of kind of taking the hits up front.
Totally. So. And one of the reasons historically, I think, was that from the beginning, we started from using C++. And I think the reason was we wanted from the beginning to be high performance, while all other layer 2 projects, if you, whatever you name layer 2, but still, all other layer 2 projects, all of them, ZK, Optimistic, whatever, all of them actually started from Geth, which is Ethereum Go software, and all of them were like tweaking Geth. But Geth is written in Go. And Go, the problem with Go is that it's super great to program fast and it shrinks your development time, but at the expense of speed and memory consumption. And memory consumption even more than speed. So Go is a language which actually requires lots of memory. That's why you have Geth, it takes 16 gigabyte, and it's not really hard. It's really hard to like shrink it without rewriting in a different language, which, as you imagine, is like almost not really feasible. So I think one of the really good things about this like direction of trying low resource nodes and going into cheap chains, inexpensive chains, is that pretty much we are in a unique position to do it because others can't do it. They can't really rewrite their software from starting from Go and going into like C++.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Okay, Stan. So we've got a lot of questions here. I see a question from Irma. Hi, Irma.
Hi, Irma.
Irma supporting.
Thank you for all the tweets, Irma. It's really helpful.
Yes. As well as Anikis, 3 Reger, as well as let's see, we have a lot of so okay, a lot of questions that deal with like levitation, Scale G, Ganymede. So can you just talk a little bit about we're going to cover, I'm going to hit like 10 of you at once. Thank you for the questions. At close 90, Word Ninja, Jalaka, B4Lee, Nick Cool, Julia White. A lot of questions about levitation. So Stan, give us the levitation update.
Yeah, so levitation, actually, when we started levitation, basically the idea was that the ZK mathematics, there are lots and lots of startups and big companies that actually do ZK mathematics. And so basically our idea was that since it's all open source, we don't really want to reinvent the wheel and do our own. Instead, we find like a super easy way to run what anyone has in ZK on Scale. And then Scale essentially becomes like a common platform and also a neutral platform without us actually, we could run any ZK. And since we started, actually, things even became more going into this direction because now you have Linea from Consensus and several other ZK projects and a myriad of ZK projects. So we came up with a pretty good architecture, really lightweight, to run Scale on, to run ZK on Scale. And we kind of like experimenting with Polygon and ZK Sync in parallel, just because this project's a little bit down the road compared to others. And so their software is more mature. It can you can compile it and everything. Some of other projects we looked at, they're not really ready to be executed yet, but they will, probably by the end of the year. So we came up with pretty light architecture. For Polygon, things are doing really well. For ZK Sync, things are doing well. I think for Polygon, we just experimentally found to be at the moment the most documented out of all of them. So we actually executed on this in this direction, and that doesn't really take so much code to run. So sometime in September, I think we'll have a demo of levitation for one of the protocols. Is a Polygon as a casing, because our engineers are working on parallel.
I also want to call out one that we were really impressed with also is Linea.
Linea
project, really great code.
Linea, I think for Linea, what we really liked is that Linea includes some major improvements in performance. They've using mathematics, which takes less time to do number crunching. So Linea totally, but as I said, when we started, Linea wasn't yet open sourced fully. I think they are now in process of fully open sourcing their project. But the project, I think, is really good. And also, in the past, SKALE had really good interactions with consensus. So these things are definitely in September. We'll have a really nice demo. And I think, besides SKALE, there are lots of interesting developments in ZK, which actually confirm our strategy even more. In particular, there are several hardware companies, I think NVIDIA and some other companies, startups also, developing hardware acceleration for ZK. It's like a graphics card, to run ZK fast, you can run it over a regular PC, but you can have a special purpose hardware to run ZK. So they're developing all of this hardware. So ZK is going to run really, really fast end of this year and more like start of the next year, and it's going to run in hardware. So one thing that Levitation will use, we hope that our Levitation will ultimately use this hardware, because there will be open markets for ZK number crunching. So currently, if you look at the first ZK rollups like Polygon or ZK Sync, they are doing number crunching themselves, or they are renting machines on AWS, which is pretty expensive still. I think it's clear that having the venture capital investment in the ASICs and in the hardware acceleration for ZK, 2024 will be about you will just pay on the market for someone to do this number crunching for you, and the number crunchers will actually use special purpose ASICs or chips that many companies, big companies and startups, are now really in process of developing really fast. So I think what's going to happen in ZK is that early 2024, there will be a huge amount of improvements, and then we'll have Levitation, and things will become really easy in a sense that it will be really easy for a small startup or a small team to take Levitation, run it on SKALE chain, and then also use some of these hardware accelerated things to run it cheaply.
So Stan, awesome. That is very good. Let's move on. I'm going to let's try to get a few more questions answered before the end of the hour. Okay, so we have a lot of questions about the SKALE token network value capture and economics. So one being from, let me find this. So Mr._Umar, how does what role does the SKALE token play in the SKALE ecosystem? How does it incentivize network participants? Had another similar question from 3 other people. I've got a lot of questions, so I'm trying to find them in the group. I'll give you a call out here in a second, but let me, sorry. Okay, here, Co. That's the other one. Thank you, both of you, for these questions. So one, I have to say, SKALE is the token. It's an Ethereum token that's staked in the Ethereum mainnet that's connected to the security of all the chains in the SKALE network. And so the penalties and rewards are given out on Ethereum. So we get to share security with Ethereum in a way that makes sense. And so that's one, is security. The second one is incentivization or payment. And you're going to be able to read the proposal for the next evolution of chain payments or SKALE on the forum as it goes out. But the SKALE token is the payment mechanism. It is a mechanism that is used to pay for access. So you're basically subsidizing the cost. Like, let's say I took an Uber. Well, they don't charge me an Amazon hosting fee in the Uber app. They just charge me a fee. Guess what? On the back end, they take part of my payment to pay for the cloud fees they have. Okay. Same with any application. You're playing a game. Well, you might be paying for an in-game asset, but part of that goes to pay the server fees. It doesn't just go to, it's not pure profit. And so it's a similar model. And I just want to say that this forum post and proposal and vote is going to be really critical, and it's going to be a huge advantage for SKALE over time, because a lot of our competitors, frankly, are just giving away huge grants, and then they just require that the partner uses them to offset gas fees. And so here they are, centralized intermediaries that are basically just paying for all the on-chain fees. The problem with that model is that the unit economics aren't sustainable. It's still super expensive. And when the grant goes away, guess what? The project's not going to pay that much, especially if the unit economics on SKALE are like 50 times better for the app. They're like, well, I'd rather pay upfront with SKALE than pay through a relayer on these other chains. And that's a huge advantage for us. Okay, thank you for those questions. Stan, I've got a question about the Oracle from Julia White 22. SKALE's Oracle is integrated in each SKALE chain, relies on the network for consensus. What does this decentralized Oracle approach offer to mitigate potential vulnerabilities and single points of failure compared to other oracles? So you want to talk a little bit about the SKALE Oracle?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, a SKALE Oracle is based on the same security model as the SKALE chain where it runs. It requires 2/3 of nodes to arrive at the same answer, and then they sign. Actually, if in the future we could actually increase this, there could be an Oracle that could actually use more SKALE nodes. But the current version uses a supermajority. Like when you vote for U.S. Constitution, change U.S. Constitution, you need to have 2/3 of the vote. Very much the same when someone asks SKALE Oracle for a question about anything in the world. The nodes go and then they retrieve the information. Each of them separately retrieves the information, but then they have to come to a consensus and agree and sign. And there's a supermajority vote saying, yes, we agree that today the temperature is 40 degrees Celsius, centigrade, or whatever, in Lisbon. So there's a question, and our Oracle is the first ever Oracle which is dynamic. All other oracles, if you look at Chainlink, for instance, right, you just specify once what you need. Let's say Chainlink provides information about prices of tokens. If you want something else, you need to go and talk to Chainlink. So it's actually very non-transparent how they work. I don't know if it's centralized or decentralized. I actually don't know much how they work. But the point is, I think with us, it's all open source. How it works. With Chainlink, for instance, it's a pretty big project, and the information is probably pretty reliable. But I don't know personally if it's reliable because it's centralized or because it's decentralized. The algorithms, to me personally, are not known how they work. So scales, and also, as I mentioned, Chainlink Oracle is static. Our Oracle is dynamic. You can ask any question, and the nodes will all go and ask this and get this question. And then, because of this, there are some fundamentally interesting applications. Because of its dynamic, we can ask a question about: is this person a WorldCoin user? So we could use information from other blockchains on SKALE. You could potentially play a game on SKALE and log in using WorldCoin easily, just using the Oracle, because you can ask the Oracle, is this user actually on WorldCoin. You can do anything. So you can do lots of interesting things, which we realized that when you have two blockchains, you can have a token transfer, but it's kind of a hard interaction. You have token in one chain, you move it to another chain, but there's a different type of information where you actually don't want to move the token. You just want to get information from one blockchain to another. And this one can be done using Oracle really cheaply. So I can find out if a particular, user has, 1 zillion ETH on Ethereum blockchain, or whatever information from any other blockchain. So the Oracle is really interesting. And I think many of our current dApps that are in process of building and launching, they're using the Oracle. And there will be news in the future where there will be you'll hear more about about the Oracle and how it's used.
Awesome. Well, there are a lot of questions here about features that are coming, and we're not going to have time to cover all of them. But it's making me realize, Stan, that we should probably hold a technical AMA soon, and we can pull a lot of these questions over. So, like Andre Mohan. Panda Luku 66, Maple 212, Cap Cosmos, Word Ninja, GLA, a lot of really good, really great questions that are very technical. Maybe let's try to do one more today, Stan. So there are questions. Here's from Cap Cosmos. With the introduction of paymasters to cover costs, blockchain's resemblance to Web 2 applications seems to be increasing. In this context, how does Scale maintain its uniqueness and differentiate itself as the world's fastest blockchain? So I think what he's referring to are a lot of people are using relayers and or proxy servers to sign. There's another question that's similar from Mohan or from Panda Luku about using background signers. How do you ensure security? You want to talk a little bit about that concept, Stan? Because at some point, if every single user has to click MetaMask to confirm every single thing, we'll never have any good UX. So we do need to have some efficiencies, but how do we have those efficiencies and maintain the core principles of blockchain and Web3?
Yeah, I think, there's something which is called account abstraction, where a user, you don't need to pay yourself for the transaction. There could be some other party that pays for your transaction, but still someone needs to pay for the transaction. So it makes it simpler for the user because the user doesn't have to pay, but it doesn't change the economic model that the transaction has a fee. And so I think definitely account abstraction and the fact that you can pass the payment of the fee to someone else, it's really a good thing. But I think it will only improve things to a certain degree, because you can start from a different angle. Like I've heard, like Vitalik had a speech recently, which I really liked. He was talking about what the next step for blockchain, because we had like crypto summer, now we have crypto winter, and then we're gonna have a crypto summer again at some point, but which means that people are gonna get excited about blockchain again. But we need to change something and find a new direction. And I think Vitalik is totally correct. He's saying that, that the next crypto summer is going to be about many people using blockchain. And you look like even now in the news, there are attempts to do it. There is WorldCoin. There is this app which is called Friend Tech. I think you see now attempts to actually go into the direction where how do we make blockchain useful for actually many people, millions of people, right? Because you don't see people using blockchain. Your friends or people you are in a public transportation on a subway, you don't see this. And Vitalik actually, I think in his talk, he totally correctly said, like last crypto summer was about few people with lots of money, using the things like trading, whatever, but it didn't really result in consumers, or most of us like using blockchain, the regular people. So definitely, I think it's totally clear that the next thing is going to be about actually how do we make real people use blockchain. And so if we then start from Web 2 and Web 1, the reason why, I mean, I still remember like the first time I used like a browser, right? The reason why the Web 1 and Web 2 was so viral and there was this explosive growth was that suddenly you could actually retrieve information from anywhere in the world totally free. And there's a huge difference between being totally free and paying a little psychological, because if you ask someone to pay 0.001 cents, many people won't, because it requires some mental, there's a psychological study that it doesn't really matter, it requires mental energy to pay, right? So the reason why Web 2 was successful in the first place, because every single thing was totally free. You click, you don't know where the website is, maybe it's in Asia, maybe it's in Europe, and you read information, you don't pay for it, right? So I think that it's totally clear that the Web3 is going to be, again, exactly like Web2, you won't have to pay anything. And so that's actually where Scale is unique. You need to have a system where everything is totally free. The transactions are free for the users. Definitely, there's a big economic model that Jack talked about, right? It's definitely the apps will have to pay for the chains. So sometimes people say, oh, how can Scale be free? It's free for users, for end users. It's not free for the app communities that actually design the apps, right? But I think what we have now is in the news is that we're kind of in a crypto winter, like everyone is depressed. You open up like crypto news, you keep on reading about SBF, how he goes in court, out of court. So you have all of these things. And the problem, I think, now is that crypto news is so depressed that people don't look for the new things. I mean, you don't open up CoinDesk and like read about XORD. You read about like SBF going to court this way, that way, one guy arrested another one. So you still like read about all of these bad people from crypto from the previous time. And I think the funny thing is that there are now lots of new interesting applications, but at some point the community needs to start getting excited. Mm-hmm. And when this happens, then I think we're going to have the new excitement, because there are already many things interesting. It's just that I think the news, the Twitter is still depressed, I think.
Yep. Yeah, we got to keep building through the winter. And that's what we're all doing here. Yeah, Stan, thanks. And I'll just say to that is there's always the most secure thing is just keeping private keys in a 10,000 pounds safe at Bank of America. And you have to go there and you go to safety deposit box, your private keys are there and you want to sign a transaction. Well, then you through an air gapped device, do it. Well, that's really secure, but it's not a way to play a game. Okay. And so there's just going to be different trade-offs and levels of security. And there's also different methods. And that's why levitation is so great, because you can have this fast consensus model on Scale, and then you can use levitation for like really expensive items, right? Where you want to pay more. And so we're just in the baby steps of how all this stuff works. And, but I gotta say, there's more and more builders than ever before, and the tourists are gone. And that's when you get ahead in the space. So props to everybody, even our competitors, everybody that's out battling here. We're all moving the ball forward for the industry. So, one last thing I want to say is I think it might be fun to do the next version of this on Twitter Spaces. And Stan, maybe we can take some of these technical questions and kind of do a technical Twitter Space AMA, because see what level of, because this is streaming on Twitter. Hi Twitter, where you're listening to us live, but sometimes spaces are a little more agile way to get people there. So we'll test that next time. But everyone, it's been our honor and pleasure to give the update this month, and we look forward to talking again soon. And please get in the forum and check out the chain pricing proposal that community is pushing forward. Also, if you have thoughts, go to Discord, talk about, for the project, feel free to bring them up in the dev chat or other in the general. Go to the forum, post ideas. There's plenty of opportunities if you have ideas to move the project forward to participate. Okay. Bye, everybody. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.